Hello and welcome back to my channel. Here today we're going to be talking about another brand new Washington DC feature, the GraphQL Explorer. So hang tight if you've never used GraphQL before, because we're going to take you through it. Now obviously I'm fairly new to it as well, to be honest with you. It's been around for a little while, but the Explorer is finally within ServiceNow itself, and we can see what that does, how it works. So we'll be following on from one of our previous videos this week that I did in a live a few days ago around the ServiceNow SDK. Now what we did with that is we built a brand new app. Now what I want to do in this particular video is I want to create a brand new API, a GraphQL API that we can call from within the platform or even outside the platform. Now this is going to be really interesting because, like I say, GraphQL is not new. I think it's been out since roughly the Paris release, I would have thought, a fair while back, maybe even Orlando, not too sure. And, you know, we're always able to create GraphQL APIs and use them, but the new feature is the Explorer, which I want to show you. So let's kick off and let's explain a little bit about GraphQL first, because, you know, most of us probably have done integrations and typically, you know, web services as well, using SOAP and REST. And as you know, it's very typical for most of our integrations are through that method or through Integration Hub, which typically uses those methods too. And GraphQL is slightly more rarer, I would say, in terms of that coming up as one of the choices to go to. But maybe it's just a really underused feature. Maybe it's something that can be used a lot more if the knowledge around it has been shared a lot more. So let me talk to you about what it is. So GraphQL is, I believe it's actually came from Facebook originally, but it turned out to be open source after a few years. And it's different to SOAP or REST in that it's a lot more performant. It's a lot more powerful in terms of what you ask for is what you're going to get back. So if you can be very specific in what you ask, say, for example, you want a list of incidents, but you only want to receive back certain columns, you can do that. So you can ask for certain columns and you'll get that direct information back, which is fantastic. Now, what's also really good for is you can use this in a kind of custom way, and you can use one endpoint or one API to then look at multiple tables and doing some logic against it. Then again, returning the information that you need, but only the certain parts that you need as well. It's also very good for schemas. So a big part of this is being able to, you know, document what's available in your schema, and that's available to those who are able to use, I think it's called introspection, to be able to bring back that schema so you can see how you would use that API, which is fantastic. Now, unfortunately, on my PDI instance, I don't have the ability to turn it on. I've turned the property on, but unfortunately, I think ServiceNow also need to turn it on their side, and I'm just using a PDI today, so I don't have the full introspection turned on. But we'll use it as much as we possibly can. But enough waffle, let's get into it, and let's have a look and see how it all works. So let's bring us up to speed where we are with our app. So in our app, we had created a brand new app, and today I'm going to use Studio probably instead of App Engine Studio. I'm going to go into my cycling app. You're going to use this one. Let's just zoom in a little bit to make things a little bit easier to see. That one's okay. Fantastic. So we don't have much in our app at the moment because, you know, we just did the basics of ServiceNow SDK to create it. We have a table called Activity. And this is the table I want to use to create a brand new API against. So what we're going to do, and we can't do this directly from within Studio from what I have seen. We'll try, but I don't think it comes up. Try Graph API, no. No, it's only kind of like the scripted REST APIs, which of course is another option if you wanted to do a bit more kind of scripted integrations there. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to come back to here and just type in Graph API, GraphQL even, API. So why it didn't come up? Well, nothing came up from Graph, so nothing's come from GraphQL. So yeah, you have to do this from the native client and from outside of Studio, and definitely not in App Engine Studio. But you can see when you type in GraphQL, you've got a few things that come up here, and a few things that's available to you. Now, the first place I'm going to take you to is, I think there was a few properties in here that allows you to do those introspective queries, and I turned this on, but again, like I say, it wasn't letting me. I've tried. It wouldn't let me use it, but I'll let you know what that means when we actually get to it. But what I want to do is to show you the GraphQL APIs. So this is where you're going to create essentially your endpoints or methods for you to make these available within the platform and outside. And you'll see that they're in a different kind of format. So for those not kind of used to this at all, it may look a bit like very different. Like, for example, you may think, oh, what is all this about? How the hell does that all fit together? Is that not JavaScript? Is it a bit JSON? Kind of looks like that. But I'll talk you through how to actually build one of these up from scratch. So let's do that. So I'm going to click on New, because we're going to create a new one for getting activities. I'm going to call it Activity, and our schema namespace is Activity. Now, what I want to do next, you can see our schema here, so I'll talk to you about three things. We've got a schema, we've got something called resolvers, and we've got something called resolver mappings. We need all three for this to work. We're going to start with a schema. Now, certain things are built up by scratch, and certain things you just leave as it is, and certain things you kind of build it up as you kind of go. So this first kind of section here for schema, leave that alone completely. Just leave that alone. That's not something that we're going to add to or change at this time. Essentially, we're going to use it for queries, for getting, mutation, for being able to do actions like updates and inserts. But we're just going to look at the query one, and we're going to add a brand new query in here, and I'll talk to you through the language that I'm going to use as I'm building this up. So I'm going to say get activities, and we don't have any records in this table either yet, so eventually we will need to do that. And already I've gone wrong, because this is open brackets and not the other. So get activities, and what you could do in here now is you would specify in your schema, or you could think of it as a dictionary. These are the things that we need to be able to go and get our activities. You could supply multiple parameters. So for example, I could say supply the sysid, supply the competitors that we want to retrieve the activities for them. So you could have as many or as little as you like at this point. So I could, for example, say we could say ID. Now, this is a little bit different now. This kind of looks like JSON with our kind of key pairs. Now, the ID field here is essentially ID would be your input, and the ID on the other side of the colon there is the type of field that we're expecting. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. There's lots of really cool videos out there, especially by Chuck Tomasi. So have a look at the Dev Advocate's usual YouTube series. About 4 months ago, they put a fantastic video series around this, but I'll speed this up a little bit more if that's okay. The exclamation mark means it's mandatory. We need that in there. ID is unique, which is why we don't want to put string, because that's not unique. ID being unique, we need it. Okay, so that's just a general thing there. Then we could say competitor, which is a string. I forget what else we put into the table, so let's have a look. Did we have any other columns in here? Duration, it's not really going to help us. Number, I guess. We can just put number as well, which is string as well. Fantastic. So if we just end the brackets at that point, that's string, and then this is where we want to actually define it as a type. So this is activity, like that, in square brackets ideally. Okay, then what we need to do next is, so this won't work. This would error as soon as I try and save this. Well, first of all, it's moaning about ACLs. What I'm going to do, just for the sake of quickness in here, is I'll save it without the ACLs and authentication. So it says the field type activity is not present. So what you need to do is create another one of these called type. So type, then would need activity. And it's definitely a case of getting used to this, really, I think. And these are your kind of mappings, I guess, that you want to be able to return. These are the returnable mappings, I guess, returnable columns. So I want to return the string, for ID. And the way that you do that is you use source, and you say value, and then it is sysid.value. So you either don't use the curly brackets after value or get value. We use it in this kind of format. And equally, I can return back number to the string. You use source value number.value. And lastly, I could say competitor, string, and source value is competitor.displayValue underscore value. There we go. So there we now have our type, and this is how we can restrict what we want to be able to send back, or the 30 columns that we want them to have. So we're not going to go into mutation, but we're going to just keep to the queries, and that's been able to allow us to save it now, which is good. The next step is a resolver. So resolvers are where we now can do the likes of the server-side queries. You could start using your script includes if you wanted to, or just do direct queries from within here. And then once we've done that, we use a mapping to map our server-side queries to the individual parts within the actual schema. So what I'm going to do is create a brand new resolver for get activities. And again, this is going to look a bit more familiar now from within here. So I'm going to say var act equals new glide record secure. I need to remind myself of the activities table name. So I'll just go grab that. There we go. Act dot. So what you could say now in here is if I believe it's environment.getArguments dot, and then this would be ID. So if it's supplied a ID in the schema or in that retrieval, then we want to include it. So we could say act dot add query sysid here's environment.getArguments.id, like that. Obviously, we can just put it out into a variable at the top if we really wanted to make it a little bit more cleaner. And equally, we could do the same thing now for the number field, for the competitors field if we wanted to. I'm sure there's other ways in JavaScript we can make this a little bit cleaner as well. What I could say now is maybe set limit. Let's just bring back 5 act.query and return. So what that's going to do is it's going to use those inputs, and it will do the necessary query and then return the actual object for the activity or activity list. So if we leave that one as is, and then if I come down now to resolver mappings, you'll see what will happen. So if I just go new, and then you can see in here how we can now map what we've done in the scripting to the actual queries or the individual nodes here. And so if I just go get activities, we'll select our one resolver script. Now essentially this has all now been done. So what's going to happen is there will be a query against get activities. They could specify the ID, the competitor, the number if they wanted to. And actually, I'm going to say that I'm going to bring that as not mandatory for now. competitor and number, and then they would get back this information in here, if they've asked for it, of course. So essentially our API is done. Of course, you can then add on the authentication, and then look about how we can actually build this up. So next step is, how do we run this? What is the Washington DC feature? So far we've not shown you any Washington DC features in this. The feature is around the Explorer, which I think we're going to show you next. So let's open the Explorer. Let's clear out this list in here. What we'll do is, actually, we'll just put in the name of the query in here. So it wasn't incident queries, it was activity query. I have to remind myself again. I've just called activity, the namespace. Okay. So this is activity. So it saves from the last thing that you've done, which is interesting. So it has actually found it there. So when I did this before, oh, look at that. Check that out. This wasn't working about half an hour ago. That's how it is, which is fantastic. So now it's found, this is the kind of introspection, which wasn't working for me before, and now it is. So that's good. So there's a lot of kind of schema types that you can bring up here and actually look at, which is fantastic. Lots of documents. So I wonder if down the bottom here we have, oh, we do, look at that. We've got the My Cycling ones. So we'll have a quick look at these. We've got activity, get activity. So yeah, so it shows you, this is what you're expecting, what would then be made available externally as well. So then they can see this information and know what to be able to provide, which is fantastic, isn't it? So yeah, activity. And then what we're after here is get activities. And it actually popped up there. Whoops. Get activities. I could say, give me number, state, and caller if we wanted to. Actually, I'm pretty sure this is actually curly brackets. Nope. So ID was one of the fields, wasn't it? So I wonder if this can help us build it from scratch. So it's good that you can go straight into that. Be helpful if it can just build it out for us. Okay, so let's try this again. So get activities. What is activity? Sorry. This is get activities. And we don't have state or caller. And we do have number. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Next we have to retrieve something. So that's not bringing back ID. Let's just see what's wrong with it. Everything looks correct there. Do you know what the problem is? We don't have any records at the table, do we? I swear I have one big fumble every time we do this. Oh my goodness. It's working. There's no records at the table, James. How many people just shouted at the screen there saying, hey, James, there's no records in the table? None of you did it, did you? Because I couldn't hear you. Right. Anyway. Oh, activity type was another one, wasn't it? Okay, let's add that in as well. Abraham Lincoln. Let's doing some training. 3 hours. Okay. Let's just add a duration there. 3 days worth of racing for Abel. Unlucky. Right. Let's now go back to the API Explorer. QL Explorer even. Ta-da! We're getting things back. Of course we are. So now if you start to ask for more information, you get more information. What was that other one? Activity type. Oops. Activity type. Remember, we haven't specified activity type, have we, as a field type. Now, what you can do is, I'm not sure if it likes the underscores. So if I leave that as activity type like that, right, what we can do, if we go back to the API, go to activity, and go into here, we could say activity type. So you can see how you can build this up and start to change it around a bit. Value, health, activity type, dot, display value. We don't want those horrible numbered values or anything like that. So activity underscore type. So this is where you can specify it with a bit more of a friendlier name, let's call it. So if we, first of all, just make sure it is an activity underscore type. Yes, it would be. Okay, let's save. We give that a go. Activity type. Boom, boom, boom. Race. Training. Fantastic. Do you know what? Let's do it one more time. One more time. Cool. All right. Let's add in duration, shall we? Let's add in duration. Of course, it's going to error. My Ring camera is annoying me. We'll have duration. So if I now go back to the API activity, add in duration. Now, this is going to be interesting. Now, I've only used types ID, string, Boolean, what's the other ones? Float. So these are slightly different. I'm not sure duration. Let's see. Let's see. It's going to be a good test. We're breaking the thing. So, source, value, duration, dot display value. Let's see what happens, hey? Let's see what happens. Duration. Oh, it doesn't like that. Okay. Tell you what, let's try as a string. Not duration. And let's try. Yeah. Okay, so it just kind of worked as a string there rather than anything else. That's fine. So yeah, so we've returned back 3 days, 3 hours. That's great, isn't it? So what I did want to try, and I think this is where the introspection was not working before on the Explorer when I looked at what was available. Seems to be working now, but I wanted to try it elsewhere in Postman, so outside of the instance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new collection for my GraphQL APIs, and I want to create a new GraphQL request. Let's call this, why can't we name it yet? All right, we'll put it in the URL. So let me show you what the URL kind of looks like. So it looks like this. It's got your instance name. It's got /API/now// GraphQL. Okay, that's how it kind of looks. Now, I didn't add on any authentication into this. Remember, I unticked those boxes. Although I think it does require authentication. It does require authentication to get the introspection, but we're going to see what happens if we try to just use it without. So what I've done is I've copied and pasted the thingamabobby here to get the activities, the payload, I guess. I've not added any headers or authorization. Let's just go ahead and query. And yeah, okay, well, we're getting a status of 200, and you can see we're getting that kind of same response here. So clearly it needs some level of authentication, which I've not added on here. And I'm not going to waste time trying to guess what it is. I'm pretty sure that there'll be some kind of header that we need to put in with authorization as a header, with basic authorization, and you specify the basics for encoded authorization containing the user ID and password. But then, of course, that user needs to contain certain roles, no doubt. But you can see how that would work outside of the instance, and you can see how easy that would then be for the likes of external developers to be able to utilize your APIs. Yeah, they would then utilize the fact that trying to get the schema, so it's not loading the schema right now, but that would then help them in being able to use the APIs available. So that shows how useful it is. And I know this has been a lot about what is GraphQL and how does it kind of work, but we have to kind of explain this because I don't think it's that common out there. I don't think really. So you can see how powerful it is. You can see how it would be performant because you are asking for specific information in which you run your necessary resolvers scripts against, and only return certain information back. So that's really cool. If you like this video and this new Washington DC release, please give me a like on the video, give us a follow, subscribe onto the YouTube channel, and follow us on LinkedIn if you can for any updates for the new videos. So yes, I will see you in the next one.